Another Code Recollection is a long-forgotten franchise finally getting some life breathed into it on the Nintendo Switch. I know a lot of people were looking forward to its release, especially fans of the DS original, but with all the anticipation, people don't seem to be talking about the game as much. January is usually a slow month for any game to release, and while Another Code Recollection is Nintendo's main game for the first month of the year, other games are taking the spotlight, like Prince of Persia and the Pokemon ripoff. It almost seems like Another Code is doomed to obscurity, despite being one of the few releases for this month. Heck, even for the first quarter of 2024. Well, I'm not going to allow that. We're going to talk about Another Code Recollection, the good, the bad, and why I think it's worth giving a try. Let's bring back some fond memories and see what's in store for this remake of Another Code. Not only is Another Code Recollection a remake, but it is a collection of games. A recollection, if you will. The game is a package deal of the original Nintendo DS installment, Another Code 2 Memories, or Trace Memories in the States, along with the previously unreleased in America Wii game, Another Code R, Journey into Lost Memories. Seeing as we can't play Another Code R until we beat the first one, let's beat the first one, Another Code 2 Memories. Part 1 of the recollection takes place with soon-to-be 14-year-old Ashley Robbins, who lost her mother at a young age. She gets a letter from her father to come to Blood Edward Island to meet up with him. The perfect celebration! Death, blood, daddy issues. She travels there to find a mysterious mansion, home to a bunch of cryptic puzzles and even more cryptic secrets. She also encounters a ghost boy named D, who doesn't remember anything about who he is, what his life was like, or how he died. The two must work together to help Ashley find her father and aunt, and help D remember his past. The story may seem pretty simple and straightforward, but I really appreciate how tight and focused it is. The narrative is great at building interest and making you wonder what's going to happen next. It makes you invested and you want to uncover the mystery as the story goes on. There are lots of layers to the storytelling, with the family living in the mansion, Dee's backstory, even how Ashley and her parents relate to everything. It's finely crafted, intriguing, and a decent mystery with a satisfying payoff. And I'm not gonna spoil it, go play it yourself! I will say though, there's certainly a lot of aha moments as Ashley and Dee slowly recollect their memories back in this recollection. Okay, I'll stop now. The presentation looks cool too. The cutscenes almost look like they're from a comic book or a graphic novel, and the character design makes each personality distinct and memorable. Even Dee, while at first looking like a typical ghost, has not only an interesting design, but his design also has some foreshadowing too. There aren't too many characters in this one, but each one stands out enough to make an impact to the story, and all of them are voice acted. Even if the voice acting is a little off, the voice actors seem to be a bunch of unknowns. No big names doing voices here, at least not to my knowledge. And while I feel the actors are doing the best they can, their deliveries are pretty off most of the time. It's nowhere near bad. I mean, Detective Pikachu Returns voice acting is way worse. The voice direction just feels flawed, like the actors didn't know quite how to deliver their lines or didn't have the guidance for it. Don't get me wrong, again, the actors are doing the best they could, especially Ashley, who has a majority of the lines and performs them well enough. Just the others kinda act them out a bit awkwardly. It's not really a problem with the first game, as a majority of the game is just Ashley and Dee. The balanced mix between dialogue and puzzles makes it flow decently enough, so it's a minor problem at worst. The game itself is Ashley exploring the mansion, collecting items and solving puzzles. Her wandering around room after room, trying to find what she can to get her one step close to figuring out the truth. Although there is kind of a funny thing that happens when either Ashley or Dee remember something, they stare into the camera, a sound effect plays, and the screen goes to white as the memory plays back. It was cool at first, but it gets overdone to the point that it's kinda cheesy. I mean, how often does that happen in real life? You weren't supposed to see that. Controlling as Ashley is a majority of the game, guiding her through the mansion and solving puzzles. There are no enemies or anything to avoid. It's similar to a point-and-click game of interacting with your surroundings and finding items. The only thing to avoid is getting too close to the camera. Okay, it's not too bad, but the camera can be a bit too close. to the point where Ashley can cover up the screen and make it difficult to navigate around. It's not a huge problem and can be fixed with moving the right analog stick, but I had to adjust it numerous times, more than one should have to, so I'd say the camera was a distraction. Speaking of camera, you use your DAS, a device that looks like a certain console, to help you solve puzzles. You take pictures, keep track of everyone in the story in a family tree, look for these origami cranes scattered around that if you scan them, you get little logs from your dad. It was a collectible, so while solving puzzles, I was looking for these origami birds left and right. Have you seen any cranes? Have you seen any cranes? The puzzles are a main focus of the game, and I have to say, they certainly shine here. So fun fact, the devs who worked on the original game decided to change up the puzzles in the remake completely, so that those who grew up with the game could get a whole new challenge. I think that's an awesome and creative way to provide something new to the veterans of the series, while introducing a new generation to the franchise. The puzzles can be both challenging while giving you every clue you need, as long as you look around and pay attention. Usually what you need to find is hidden in the room, or a room close by. There are all sorts of creative puzzles using unique and interesting mechanics. Collecting items around different rooms, playing a song on the piano, a first-person section where you try to light the area with candles to access different parts of the room. Okay, that puzzle was a bit annoying. Even some creative things, like taking pictures of one room to use the photo to overlap with another photo in another room. And some of the puzzles are just completely out there and extraordinary, and you really feel accomplished after solving them, and are some of my favorite things about the game. It made it even more rewarding to explore everywhere all around each room. And while you'll most likely get dialogue from Ashley, you could get a cool item needed for a puzzle. But even if you don't, there are cool tidbits of lore around the mansion. And if for some reason you're struggling with all the puzzles, the game does have a nice hint system. You just press the left stick and the game will tell you where to go. It's never required, but if you ever get stumped or want to avoid the challenge, you'll find where you need to go with it. And get some pretty lights too. You can't use it to find cranes though. Crane! Also, the music is really good too. It's a balanced mix of quiet and mysterious that nails the tone of the whole game, instantly getting me in the mood to look for clues, all while wanting to see what's inside of this crazy mansion. I enjoy this game a lot more than I thought I would. It's a bit short, but it's a game that really flew by, and before I knew it, I was done. It has some interesting plot points, fantastic puzzles, great music, and is an overall enjoyable experience. It's not perfect, the voice direction's a little wonky, the camera is a bit too close, and then there's that weird first-person section. But for a short and sweet game, I can see why people were a fan of the series, and the original on the DS. And for people like me, this port was a chance to enjoy the game for the first time, and this first part of the collection is certainly a memorable one. But that's only the first game in Another Code Recollection. The second game is Another Code R, originally released on the Nintendo Wii and finally coming to the States for the first time. So how did that one hold up after all these years? Okay, let's start with the story. Ashley returns 2 years later, traveling to Lake Juliet to meet up with her dad once more. She discovers the town and the residents in it, and meets a boy named Matthew, among others. She explores the area and discovers the secrets and history of the lake and the town, all while trying to help Matthew and his secrets along the way. Already, this has a much lighter tone than the first game, as this game takes place in a more colorful and nature-filled environment, and the Switch does a decent job of bringing Lake Juliet to life. You see scenic views of bodies of water and the clock towers, small town areas like the local burger shop, cottages, and the guest house. By the way, have you heard of Lake Juliet? If not, you'll remember it after you hear this song.
Oh, Lake Juliet, do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do, Lake Juliet.
This theme plays every time you enter the guest house, and it is so cheesy and so catchy. Ever since I played the game, this song has been living rent-free in my head. And if I'm going to suffer this fate, you're all gonna join with me! And yes, those are the vocals in this game. The voice acting returns, and it's still oddly directed just like the last game. Compared to Two Memories, Another Code R has a lot more of a focus on talking to people, trying to play detective and finding out information with it all voice acted too. It's really cool, especially with the expanded cast, But with the fact there's a lot more voice acting, the flaws of the voice direction strike more and more. It is fine, and a lot better than something from Detective Pikachu Returns.
Sorry, but Brad is waiting for me. I'll go ahead and meet up with you there.
Put that away. There is character development, there is good writing, there are storytelling seeds being planted. But at the same time, not only are the weirdly delivered lines more common, you almost get fatigued by all the voice acting, and you just want to get to the puzzles already. The first game had a good balance, but it just feels like there's almost too much talking going on, and a lot of it can get into the padding territory. There's still story significance, and it even picks up especially towards the latter half of the adventure, but still there were moments I thought they could have just shortened a bit. There are still puzzles, and while there aren't nearly as much as last time, they mostly hit the mark well. There's this one clock puzzle that I thought was super creative, and it felt extremely satisfying to solve them all. It was either really satisfying or really relies on the motion controls. This is a remake of a Wii game after all, and those were fine. Again, I love how creative the series can get when it comes to the variety of riddles. It's enough to challenge me, but also feels fair enough where I feel like I can solve it. But I feel like these were more easier here than the last one, but that's just me. You also have a decent amount of collectibles too, including the return of the cranes, but there aren't nearly as many this time. In the first game, there was literally one in almost every room. Here there's like 9 in certain locations, and it just felt inconsistent and weird. Where are my cranes? Where are my cranes? But we also are collecting cans. You find cans littered on the ground, and you take them to these recycle machines, and they pop out coins, which you can take to locations to get gum from gum machines. What do you use the gum for? The game doesn't tell you. We don't even know how long the flavor lasts. Just one more mystery for those exploring Lake Juliet. It's cool there's more things to search for and to find, but I don't know, the main reason for wanting the cranes is to get that bit of insight from Ashley's dad, and get a bit more story. It wasn't collecting for the sake of collecting. There may be a reason, but playing through the entire game, I couldn't find a reason and didn't prioritize on it. Thanks, another Code R. You didn't make cleaning the environment interesting. What is interesting is the music, which also hits just as hard as the first game and nails the atmosphere of the setting. Obviously with a lot more lighter tone compared to the quiet and cryptic mansion from the first game, with some of the songs being reused soon. While they did fit their settings well, I don't know if any were specifically memorable, if that makes sense. At least compared to the ones in the first game. Other than... Another Code R is still good, but I'd be lying if I said it was as good as the first one. Again, the remake of Trace Memories is such a tight experience. Great story, music, and a plethora of puzzles, all mixed together into something great. Another Code R, however, while having a lot of good things going for it, seems to overstay its welcome, go on longer than it should, and take too long to get to the good stuff. Not a bad game at all, and the first one isn't exactly perfect either. Its flaws are just more apparent in the second one. This remake had a bit of a lower budget compared to something like Super Mario RPG Remake, or even Advance Wars Reboot Camp. And while the gameplay was great, I really wish the Wii remake had more time in the oven, and better voice direction. I know a lot of people wanted this sequel to finally come to the States, and while I'm happy it did, I can kinda see why it wasn't localized to begin with. If I had to choose which game I wanted to bring over, I'd choose Trace Memory any day. So after that, do I recommend the entire collection? Because you have to get both, not one or the other. The games are both good for fans of the puzzle-solving genre, but the question is, are they worth the $60 price tag? I really enjoyed Another Code Trace Memory, and while Another Code R is flawed, I still am happy I got the chance to play it and experience it fully. The game, however, is not for everyone, and I can see people not getting into it at all, and I don't blame you for it. If you're a fan of games that test your brain, you're looking at a new series of puzzles to try. And if you want a decent story and challenge to go with it, I'd say the game is worth giving a shot. And if you aren't entirely sure if it's your cup of tea, you can still try the free demo and see if it's up your alley. While it is heavily flawed, I still love Another Code Recollection, and I hope it sells well enough for Nintendo to give it more love in the future. It's a game that's sure to bring back the fondest of memories. Just like that jingle that won't get out of my head! Get out of my head!
Oh, Lake Juliet, do 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 do. Do do do, Lake Juliet and you. You know what? I'm actually done with it. Dan, turn on the music. I don't want to do this anymore. I've been singing this song for 10 hours straight. It's rough. It's like, it haunts my dreams, man. Can we move on? At least hire somebody else. I'm done with it. Please. I'm done. I quit. I'm out. Don't. You go take your check and do yourself. All right? I'm out.
Hey everybody, Random Bystander here. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. Thanks to all these special people who helped out with the video. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon patrons listed here, including Mantle Ferox. Thank you so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated and means the world to me. And if you wish to support me on Patreon, the link is in the description below, along with my Twitch and Instagram. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good night!